John's life was a never-ending, swirling whirlpool of addiction. It was a relentless downward spiral into chaos, an abyss where every moment was consumed by the pursuit of the next high. Once an aspiring artist, his dreams and ambitions had become mere memories, drowned in the intoxication of drugs and alcohol. The day-to-day existence was a numbing repetition of obtaining, consuming, and craving more. Relationships that were once strong had disintegrated into mere shadows of their former selves. Friends had distanced themselves out of concern or frustration. His family, once his foundation, was worn down by the relentless turbulence that addiction brought into their lives. Even his promising career had been ground to a halt as his work deteriorated into a shadow of what it once was. One fateful morning, John awoke to a grim and sobering reality. He was trembling, the physical manifestation of the turmoil within him. His body was frail, his spirit shattered, and his mind in a constant state of haze. He gazed into the mirror and stared into eyes that appeared vacant, haunted by the reflection of a disheveled man who scarcely resembled the vibrant artist he used to be. It was a moment of awakening. Rock bottom wasn't a tangible place, it was a state of mind. It was the realization that he had reached the nadir of his existence, a turning point where he couldn't escape the truth any longer. The pain was excruciating, but it was also a powerful motivator. It was the moment John knew he had to change or face the grim inevitability of a life defined by addiction. Rock bottom wasn't just a place, it was a visceral experience. It was the deep chasm of despair that John had been plunged into. He gazed at his reflection, barely recognizing the man staring back at him. The hollow eyes, sunken cheeks, and unkempt appearance were stark reminders of how far he had fallen. His health was deteriorating rapidly, and he knew, with a gnawing certainty, that he was marching toward the precipice of death. The pain was unbearable. John couldn't escape it. But, paradoxically, it was that pain that finally motivated him to seek help. He picked up the phone and dialed the number of a friend he had pushed away for too long. Tears streamed down his face as he confessed his powerlessness. The words tumbled out, unfiltered, raw, and honest. He couldn't do this alone anymore. He didn't want to. His friend, though hurt and wary, saw a glimmer of hope in John's voice. They agreed to meet, and that meeting became the turning point in John's life. It was the moment he took his first steps on the arduous path of recovery, clutching that fragile sliver of hope he had uncovered deep within himself. The decision to change was an agonizing process. It wasn't a single, dramatic moment but a series of excruciatingly honest conversations with himself. He faced his own doubts and fears head-on. Could he truly overcome this addiction that had enslaved him for so long? He had questioned his own capacity for change, but he knew that he was done with the chaos, the self-destruction, and the profound despair. As he embarked on this uncertain journey, he did so with a mixture of trepidation and determination. The unknown stretched out before him, shadowed by the fear of failure, but he was unwilling to let that fear deter him any longer. He needed help, and he was ready to accept it. Entering the rehabilitation facility was like stepping into a foreign land. It was a stark contrast to the chaotic and toxic environment he had grown accustomed to. The process of detoxing was brutal, the agony of withdrawal coursing through his body, making every cell scream for the familiar numbness that drugs and alcohol had provided. Yet, amidst the suffering, there was a glimmer of hope. In this facility, he met others who were on their own paths to recovery. These were people who, like him, had seen the abyss and decided to turn away. The shared experiences forged an unspoken connection, a camaraderie that became a lifeline. The group therapy sessions were grueling. They delved deep into the roots of addiction, exposing the pain and trauma that had initially led John down this destructive path. It was an emotional roller coaster, as the wounds of the past were torn open and the scars exposed to the healing light of understanding and empathy. As John listened to the stories of his fellow addicts, he realized he was not alone in his struggles. The isolation and shame he had carried for so long began to dissipate. The bonds formed within the walls of the rehabilitation facility became his newfound support network, a source of strength that he would carry with him into the outside world. The healing process was a complex and arduous journey. With therapy and self-reflection, John began to peel back the layers of his past. He confronted the demons he had been running from, digging deep into the heart of his addiction to understand its roots. Each revelation was like a searing brand on his soul, but he learned to embrace these moments of pain, understanding that they were not signs of weakness but of strength. Therapy became his lifeline, a space where he could bare his soul, shedding the armor he had worn for years. He cried, he raged, and he allowed the emotions that had been suppressed by addiction to surface. It was a messy, raw process, but it was also profoundly cathartic. The therapeutic process was complemented by a regimen of physical and mental exercises that helped John regain his sense of self. He rediscovered the love of art that had once defined his identity, and he slowly started to rebuild the creative outlet that addiction had all but stolen from him. The process of recovery was not linear. There were setbacks, moments of doubt, and instances where he questioned the very nature of his journey. But as he continued to peel away the layers of his past, he uncovered a stronger, more resilient self that was no longer bound by the chains of addiction. Confronting his demons was a relentless and painful undertaking. As John navigated the labyrinth of his own mind, he unearthed memories that had long been buried, memories of childhood traumas and emotional wounds that had festered over the years. With the help of his therapist, he began to piece together the puzzle of his life. The process was agonizing, each memory a puzzle piece that revealed another layer of his addiction's foundation. John had been using drugs and alcohol as a means of self-medication, as a desperate attempt to silence the ghosts that haunted him. As he worked through the painful memories and emotions, he started to understand that his addiction was not a choice but a survival mechanism, a coping strategy gone awry. The journey through this emotional minefield was a tumultuous one. John faced the ghosts of his past head-on, reliving moments of pain and trauma that he had tried to forget. But in the safety of therapy, he began to recognize that acknowledging these past wounds was the first step toward healing. He was no longer running from his demons, he was confronting them, learning to coexist with the scars they had left behind. The therapeutic process was a continuous excavation of the past, and with each layer of pain he peeled back, John grew stronger. He learned to embrace his emotions, understanding that they were not signs of weakness but of resilience. With each tear shed and each memory shared, he began to rebuild himself from the ground up. Leaving the safety of the rehabilitation facility was a test of John's resolve. The outside world still held temptations at every corner. Old friends, once partners in self-destruction, lurked in the shadows, waiting to draw him back into the abyss. Familiar places, filled with memories of drug-fueled escapades, posed threats to his fragile sobriety. The first weeks and months of reintegration were fraught with challenges. The world outside the facility seemed foreign and hostile. The security of the controlled environment was gone, replaced by the chaos of the outside world. John had to put into practice the coping strategies he had learned during his time in rehabilitation. He had to lean on his newfound support network, relying on the bonds he had forged with fellow recovering addicts. The temptation was omnipresent. In moments of weakness, the siren call of his old habits beckoned, promising escape from the pain of sobriety. But John was determined to break free from the cycle that had ensnared him for so long. He knew that surrendering to temptation would only lead him back to the abyss, and that was a place he could never return to. As he navigated the treacherous waters of reintegration, he drew strength from the strategies he had learned in therapy. Mindfulness became his ally, helping him stay present in the moment and resist the pull of the past. He learned to recognize the triggers that led to his addiction, enabling him to avoid or confront them with resilience. Rebuilding relationships was not a linear process, it was a complex web of emotions and experiences. It required humility, vulnerability, and a deep well of patience. John was committed to making amends with those he had hurt during the darkest days of his addiction. One by one, he reached out to the people he had pushed away, seeking forgiveness and understanding. Some welcomed him back with open arms, their hearts brimming with love and hope. Others were more guarded, their trust still eroded by the betrayals of the past. John understood that he couldn't expect immediate forgiveness. He had to demonstrate his commitment to change through his actions, not just his words. His family, once fractured by the turmoil of his addiction, became a focal point of his efforts. He had hurt them deeply, causing wounds that took time to heal. But he was determined to rebuild the bonds that had once been his rock. He attended family therapy sessions, engaging in open and honest conversations that slowly began to mend the fractures in their relationships. Reconnecting with old friends was equally challenging. The people who had once been his partners in self-destruction had moved on with their lives. Some were skeptical of the change in John, hesitant to rekindle their friendships. Others, however, saw the transformation in him and extended a hand of support. Through the process of rebuilding relationships, John discovered the power of forgiveness. He learned to forgive himself for the pain he had caused, understanding that addiction was a complex and relentless foe. And he learned to forgive others for their doubts and hesitations, recognizing that trust needed to be rebuilt over time. Sobriety had given John a newfound clarity. As he emerged from the shadow of addiction, he began to rediscover his passions and interests. The fog of intoxication lifted, revealing a world of possibilities he had long forgotten. In therapy, he had explored the core values and dreams that had been buried beneath the wreckage of addiction. His passion for art, which had once been his lifeline, rekindled. He returned to the canvas, each stroke of the brush a testament to his renewed creativity. The act of creating became a form of therapy in itself, a way to channel his emotions and express the beauty he saw in the world. John also found purpose in helping others on their own journeys of recovery. He had walked through the fire of addiction and emerged on the other side, and he felt a profound responsibility to be a guiding light for those still struggling. He began volunteering at the rehabilitation facility, offering support and mentorship to those who, like him, had seen the abyss and were searching for a way out. As he delved deeper into this role of mentorship, he discovered the joy of helping others reclaim their lives. He realized that his experiences, painful as they were, had given him a unique perspective and a powerful voice. He became an advocate for recovery, speaking at support groups and sharing his story with unwavering honesty. Finding purpose was not just about rediscovering his own passions, it was about using his journey as a source of hope and inspiration for others. It was a testament to the transformative power of recovery, a reminder that even in the darkest of times, there was a path to light. Recovery was not a linear path, it was a series of ups and downs, victories and setbacks. John, like many others on the journey, faced a moment of weakness and experienced a relapse. It was a harsh and bitter setback, a moment of deep self-doubt and shame. The relapse was a stark reminder of the persistent grip of addiction. It was a moment of vulnerability, where the familiar call of old habits had proven too strong to resist. But John didn't allow this setback to define him. He refused to surrender to self-loathing and despair. Instead, he used it as a learning experience. The relapse had been a brutal reminder of the fragility of recovery. It was a painful lesson that underscored the importance of ongoing vigilance and support. John had to rebuild not only his sobriety but also his self-esteem, recognizing that one setback did not erase the progress he had made. With the guidance of his therapist, he dissected the circumstances that had led to the relapse. He learned to identify the triggers and vulnerabilities that had caused him to stumble. He devised new strategies to strengthen his defenses, making it clear that he would not allow this moment of weakness to define his journey. The process of redemption was a grueling one, filled with moments of self-reflection and self-forgiveness. John understood that recovery was not about perfection but about resilience. He was determined to rise from the ashes of his relapse, stronger and more committed to his path than ever before. John's transformation from a struggling addict to a mentor was profound. He became a symbol of resilience, a living testament to the power of recovery. His story was a source of inspiration to those who were still mired in addiction, a glimmer of hope in the darkness. As he continued to walk the path of recovery, he embraced the role of mentor with unwavering dedication. He shared his story with others, offering a glimpse into his own journey through adversity and transformation. He became a trusted figure at the rehabilitation facility, someone who could relate to the struggles and fears of those just beginning their recovery. John's advocacy extended beyond the walls of the rehabilitation center. He began speaking at support groups, sharing his story with honesty and vulnerability. He didn't sugarcoat the challenges he had faced, he laid them bare for all to see. He understood that by being transparent about his journey, he could break down the stigma surrounding addiction and recovery. As he interacted with others on their own paths to recovery, John discovered the profound impact he could have on their lives. He watched as the light of hope began to flicker in their eyes, the same glimmer of hope that had ignited within him. He realized that recovery was not just about personal transformation, it was about being a beacon of hope for others who were still lost in the darkness. The story of John's recovery was not one of a finite endpoint but a continuous journey. The process of recovery was ongoing, a path that stretched into the horizon. As John looked back on his transformative journey, he recognized that it was not a destination but a lifelong commitment. He continued to attend therapy sessions, finding solace and guidance in the therapeutic process. He understood that the demons of addiction could never be fully exorcised, they could only be tamed through self-awareness and resilience. Life had changed in remarkable ways. John had rebuilt his career, rekindled his relationships, and rediscovered his passion for art. He had found purpose in helping others on their own journeys of recovery, and he continued to be a steadfast advocate for change. But he knew that recovery was a continuous process, a path marked by both progress and setbacks. The shadows of addiction still lurked in the corners of his mind, and he remained vigilant, ready to confront them when they threatened to resurface. The story concluded with a message of hope and resilience, an acknowledgement that recovery was not a destination but a way of life. John's journey was a testament to the transformative power of the human spirit, a reminder that even in the face of the darkest of adversities, there was always a path to recovery, healing, and, ultimately, a new beginning.